Hi, Susan here. Today I'm going to do something which is a little bit more advanced than the basic bodice, and it's called the princess bodice. And the princess bodice is using vertical lines, usually anywhere from the neckline, the shoulder line, or armhole line that passes to the apex, or if not close to the apex, and down the center of the bodice. And that way we can actually squeeze out darts and have a design line rather than darts in the front as well as the back. You want them to be comparable, so if you're having the shoulder line as your princess bodice in the front, you definitely want to continue that in the back. But you can move that design line wherever you wish. I did it a little bit more of a basic one, and I gave just a slight different neckline than you would normally have in a school, which would be all the way to the top of the neck, just to give you a little bit of a variation there. Okay, let's get started. Before we get started, you have to block pieces of muslin to fit the design line on your dress form. And they're usually, depending upon your size of your dress form, usually they're about 12 inches you have to tear and about 24 inches long. I've already prepared and blocked some of these muslins. I'm going to give you a quickie on this one last piece, but please check out my part 1 of Draping 101, Prepare and Block Muslin. It'll give you the entire step very slowly and explaining every process of it. After you tear the pieces, you have to use what's called the L square and make sure that the actual muslin pieces and the vertical lines and the cross grain lines are perpendicular, and that you have a very good squared corners on all of your corners to get started. After you do that, then I already did the front, but then you have to do on the back. You have to put 1 inch from the raw edge on the left hand side and draw a line and fold that back. Okay, let's get started. Here are the tools you're going to need to do this. You're going to need your straight ruler, you're going to need pins, pencils, design line tape, draping scissors or fabric scissors, your French curve, your hip curve, your L square for the blocking process, and your cut muslins for each portion of your drape bodice on the right side. So 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of muslin already blocked and marked and ready to go. Okay, let's start draping this now. First step in draping your bodice is to establish your design lines. Establish what your design line for your neckline is going to be. I use the tape again, like I told you guys before. It's in the architect section, and it has an adhesive on it, and that you can do any kind of design line with that. I chose just a little bit of a simple round neck. If you can't find this tape, you can get ribbon, which is just like this, an 1/8 of an inch ribbon. You can probably get this anywhere, and go ahead and put your design line and pins along the inside of that. I'm also going to be using the basic princess bodice lines of my mannequin itself, so that you can see the most basic elements of making the princess bodice. I'm going to be draping with the center front now. Okay, let's do the next step. Center front, another pin at the waistline and center front, and a few others just to fill it in to make sure it stays. The first thing we always want to do is establish where the apex is, and here is the apex. I'm going to put a cross mark, and at that point I'm going to put a line. Okay, next step. Okay, I have the pin at the apex, and I'm going to pin it to the apex just like that, like I do all my muslins. And I'm going to go ahead and put back the pin at the center front and neckline, excuse me, the center front and neckline style line, the center front and waistline, and a few other pins, like I said, to hold it down in the center front. Now that we have this, we want to make sure that this is always perpendicular. My design line, or my princess line, also is at the apex line. First thing I want to do is establish this and make this straight, which is what I'm going to do right here. Put the pin there. as well. I'm going to clear out the neckline to get this so I can smooth it over my design line. And I do my steps, as you can probably remember from my other videos, and that's 2 fingers going down, across, and sharply to the intersection of the neckline and the shoulder. I'm going to release all this tension with my scissors, cutting down and releasing the tension and going back up. I'm going to push this up and I'm going to cut this down as well. I'm releasing the tension at the neckline. I'm going to take the pin out, do the steps again, down, across, and sharply to the intersection of the neckline and the shoulder line. I'm going to put a few more cuts to release as much as I can without going all the way to the actual neckline. Now that that's smooth, I can smooth over my design line, as you can see here, and I'm going to go ahead and put a pin at the intersection of the shoulder and neckline. I'm going to then smooth this over here on the shoulder line. All we need to worry about is this princess bodice line, right? So I'm not going to worry about too much further there. I'm going to go ahead and put pins just to hold it securely down on my princess line, like this. So I can go ahead and mark it. Here we're going to have the same issues because it curves in. So what I'm going to do is get rid of some of this muslin. I'm going to go across the bottom. I'm going to clip up to the waistline but not through the waistline, and I'm going to get rid of a lot of this extra. And what I'm going to do is clip to the design line just to release it a little bit more, like that. Take a little bit of all this excess fabric out. We don't need all this excess. And the intersection of the princess line, I'm going to put a pin and I'm going to get rid of all this excess, like that. And I'm going to put a slash here and here because the body curves in and I want to make this smoothly over the body and following the princess line. See if you can see that here, like that. I'm going to put pins just to pull it out as much as I can without pulling it too tautly. And then now we've got a mark. We've got the marking pencil. I'm going to mark the intersection of the neckline and center front and just dot all along the neckline, just like that. Going all the way around the neckline, like that. I'm going to put the cross mark at the shoulder line as well. Let's see if I can make this lower so you can see the cross mark here at the shoulder line. I'm going to dot at the shoulder line till I get to the princess line, which is right here. That is the princess line for the center front portion. Then I'm going to feel the groove of that princess line and I'm going to dot all the way along that groove. If you can't see, that's why we use muslin, so it's fairly sheer and you can see through it hopefully. But if not, feel it with your fingers and you should be able to feel that. I'm going to go ahead and put that all along the front to the apex and then below the apex. And so you can see this. I'm going to put markings again at the princess line. Your body goes in at this point. You want to do that on the curve of the bust. Okay. And I'm going to put it some more here. I just want to take the pin out. I've got this here as well. And I'm doing it all along. My pins are underneath and I can feel them. If not, you can fold it back like that and make a crease. And I'm going to do it all the way to the waistline intersection and the bottom of my tape, like that. So now we have most of the markings for the center front portion of this princess body. I want to make sure you can see the markings up close, and also it's very important to put little cross markings above the bust and below the bust. You need these 3 notches is what it's going to turn into so that you can fit it properly on the second section. Okay, next step. Okay, we're draping the second part of the front. I have my muslin and I pulled a grain in this and drew a line in the center of this piece. I'm going to put that line vertically in the middle of the entire portion of the piece. Here I'm going to put pins up and down the vertical line to keep that nice and straight first, all the way to the waistline, like that. Then I can just drape over the body, as you can see next. I'm going to then smooth over here to the neckline and the shoulder line and put a pin. I'm going to get rid of some of this excess. I'm going to clip. Okay, but we don't want to clip too far because we want to make sure we feel that bodice over there. We want to establish where the apex is, and that is where the apex is right now. And I'm going to go ahead and put a cross mark like this so that I can go ahead and put a pin there to hold that in place, and then we can smooth over that part. Okay, now I'm going to smooth it over to the waistline like that, and because the body concaves, I'm going to do some slashing here, just very little bit at a time. I don't want to go all the way through, and get rid of some of this excess. And I'm going to go ahead and put a pin to hold this there, and if I have to slash more, which I will go ahead and do that. Putting this on that side. In the middle, we always have to do what's called a pinch of ease. So I'm going to pinch a little piece of ease, about 1/4 of an inch, and then fold it back on the actual waist tape. Then I'm going to go to the waistline like this and put a pin. Now it also has to smooth over the side seam. I'm going to go ahead and put pins like this to hold it down. You don't want to pull it too tightly because then what's going to happen is it's not going to fit you properly. I'm going to go ahead and slash here as well because that is a curved part of the body. Anywhere where it's curved, you might have to slash. Just don't go all the way to the side seam. Taking more of this excess out of my way, like that. And here we go. Let's get a little bit more of this excess out. Slash this to the side seam. And then I'm going to take some of this excess out here as well. And I'm going to slash a little bit here at the waistline just so that it lies smoother for me, like that. Okay, we've pulled this nice and tautly at the side seam. You can hopefully see where I'm going to be marking here on the waistline, and of course, very importantly, on the princess line. I'm going to do that now in green marker so you can see. We're going to start at the top. I'm going to lower my mat so you can hopefully see that. And I'm going to be putting a cross mark at the shoulder and the princess line. And here it's very important. I'm going to put dots along the shoulder line. I'm going to put a cross mark at the shoulder line and where the shoulder forms around to that point. I'm also going to put a cross mark where the screw plate is. So that's going to be right here. I'm going to dot along the plate on the ridge of where that plate is. I'm going to use my fingernails and go around the plate here and put a line in green. I'm going to put a cross mark at the underarm and intersection of the side seam. I'm going to dot, dot, dot all the way along this line. Okay, here we are now, hopefully at the waist. Let's get this higher for you. And I'm going to dot, dot, dot at the waistline as well, and the intersection of the side seam and waistline. Dot below the waist tape. We want to make sure that our intersection is the same here at the intersection of the waist and the princess line bodice. Now I'm going to be dotting along this ridge. Hopefully I can feel the pins underneath. If not, you can peek, like I say. You can just make sure that you're getting it. This is a curved seam. I want to keep it as curved as possible. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin there. And remember that notch I put? That notch is very important. That notch or that cross mark is right here. I'm going to have to put another one on this side so that that particular notch is going to match up with this one. I'm going to go ahead and dot over the bust line on the apex area right here, and curve. I'm going to dot above here as well. I can see the cross mark underneath. That is the other cross mark, as you can see there. And I'm going to dot. This is also a curved seam right over here, so I'm going to go ahead and try to dot and feel where I'm dotting that line. Lower it again, and I'm just going ahead and dotting right on that line like that. It's easier to show you everything on the form first, and then we can do the flap next. I put pins at all of the intersections that are needed, as well as along the side seam, so I can feel that when I'm draping the back. We're going to drape the back now. We always do the center back first, so I already have that prepared. I tore the muslin. I turned back that 1 inch like I explained to you earlier. I'm going to go neckline and the center back intersection. I'm going to go ahead and put pins all along the center back to hold that exactly where it needs to be. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin at the waistline here as well, and the center back, and another one just above it, just so that I can get that nice and smooth. Okay, we have that there nice and smooth. I'm going to go back here. Again, we are going to be working with this princess line here. There's a portion of a neckline and there's a portion of a shoulder. Let me go ahead and put this pin all the way through. So now I'm going to smooth over the back. We're going to do the same thing on the neckline like we did on the front. 2 fingers down, across, and sharply to the intersection here on the back neckline. I'm going to release that with my scissors, cutting down like this and up. You don't ever want to go down and down. So you want to go down as close as you can to the neckline without going all the way through, and then kind of going up like that. I'm going to take the pin out, do the thing again, 2 fingers down, across, and sharply to the intersection like that. Okay, and at that point I'm just smoothing over the shoulder line like that. I need to just be able to mark here as well as where the princess bodice starts. So I have it pretty nicely smoothed on there. If anything, I'll just make it a little bit smoother. So that's nice and smooth already. We smooth over the shoulder line. This way I can feel exactly where the princess line is. You can feel it, you can't necessarily see it. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is put pins on the other side of the line so I can remove some of that excess fabric as well. I'm just putting pins on the princess line where I can feel the groove like that. And let me get rid of some of this extra. Again, it's pulling at the waist. You want to cut up, not all the way to the black tape, but just close to the black tape, and remove some of that excess. I'm going to pull this here as well. And I'm going to take some of this out so I can show you what's going on a little bit better. Okay, so I can feel the groove. I can feel the neckline. I can see the neckline. I can feel the shoulder line, and I can feel the princess line. And that's important to have. As soon as you have that, you can start then your markings. And what I'm going to do is take the green marker again, and I'm going to put a cross mark at the waistline intersection, dot, 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 along the bottom of that tape. And this intersection, which is the waistline and the princess line intersection, that has to be put in with a cross mark, just like that. I have pins here so I can feel where I need to be, so I'm just going to go ahead and dot where I feel those pins. And here is a groove. That is where your princess bodice line is on the back. Just going to continue to dot all along that line and just go all the way up. Here we are closer to the shoulder. You can see there's a line here as well. I'm going to go ahead and dot all the way along that. The neckline, which is lower than the actual bodice of the mannequin. I'm going through this way. I'm going to fold back at the shoulder so I have a nice smooth line that I can follow. I'm folding back, increasing it at the shoulder like that. That way I can dot along the actual line. Then I'm going to do where the intersection is, which is right here. There's an intersection right there. And then there's another intersection right at the neckline. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, now I'm going to cut a little bit of this excess out. I'm going to pin it down so we can do the last portion of the back. Next step. Last section, which is the side back. And I've taken the muslin and I've pinned along the center of that grain line, again in between the entire section, so it's just along the straight line or the grain line. Now I can go ahead and drape. I put a pinch of ease here at the side in the center of that portion as I did in the front. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin on that side, and I have a pin on this side. I'm going to release some of this tension on the bottom of the waistline as well. So I'm going to go ahead and slash up, slash up, slash up. And I'm going to remove some of this excess like that. I'm going to push this down. I'm smoothing over the entire section again for the side seam, which is right here. And then the side seam princess line on this side, which is right around here. I'm smoothing over the shoulder, letting that go wherever it wants to go, putting a pin there. And I have it here also. I can feel where that shoulder piece is. Let me add a few more pins on this side here along that princess line. The princess line is right here. I'm going to slash this side like that. Just going to release some of the tension because it was pulling a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin there. Let's get this down so you can see here as well. This is where the princess bodice line is for the back. I can feel it. So like I said, you kind of have to navigate it with feel most of the time. I'm going to go ahead and put some pins here to hold that nice and flat like this. And I'm going to go ahead and use my green marker again. Okay, here along the shoulder, and get that as close as I can to you. I'm going to feel where that line is. This is where the line is. I'm going to go ahead and dot on that groove and that line as I feel it. You can put your fingernail there if you'd like, however it is easier for you to work, just so you can get the dots. I'm going to pull this back up. Again, we're going to go ahead and feel the groove. I also see my little green marks from underneath, and I'm just going to go ahead and dot along that princess seam line all the way down, and there where you can see the groove. Here is the dots again. If you have to peek, that's fine. Make sure you have exactly where that intersection is because it has to match up when in the truing process. I'm going to put that there. I'm going to dot along the waistline all the way to the side seam. Here is the side seam. I'm going to go ahead and put a few pins just to hold that out like that on the side seam. This intersection is very important. I'm going to release some of this tension and remove some of this for you so you can see what's going on. Okay, that's removed. Here we are underneath the arm plate. You can actually feel that with your fingernail, and you can see that with your fingernail. I'm going to draw that line like that. I'm going to make sure that my intersections match on the side seam, which is right there. I'm going to go ahead and pin that. The side seam is a little bit easier to feel because it's very large, and I'm just going to go on the outside of the side seam and do some dots and lines till I get to the side seam here. I can see where those dots are all the way here to that intersection. Okay, and that you can see there, hopefully. We're going to go all the way down now, and here we need the shoulder line. So I'm going to pull it back, fold it back, put a crease on that with my fingernail, pull it back down again, and then I'm going to go ahead and put that little dots on that fold line. We want to go all the way to where the shoulder line and where it drops off on the actual shoulder ridge, we call that. And put this intersection here, the shoulder ridge section, dotting along that ridge section. As you can see here, dot, dot, dot. When you find where the middle of that screw is, which is right here, that's where you're going to put your cross mark as well, right there. And that's where you actually go into the groove where you have the armhole. That's to help you make a perfect armhole. Okay, it looks like we are pretty much done with this piece. Now I'm going to put them on the flat and we will true it together. Okay, next step. Okay, now we're on the flat. I have the princess bodice removed off the mannequin, and I have my 4 sections. This is the center front, and here's the center back, and we're going to true this. Okay, I have the 2 front sections here right now, and we're going to true it. Truing is basically just taking any of the markings and dots and drawing either a straight line or a curved line with the majority of the dots falling on those lines. I'm going to start with the neckline with my French curve. I'm going to just put it along the French curve, along the lines, on the dots, and taking the majority of it and then going ahead and drawing that line. There is my neckline. Here's my shoulder line from intersection to intersection. I'm drawing that line. The side front, I'm going to draw that intersection to intersection and draw that straight line. Now I'm going to take my hip curve and try to go with as many of the markings as I can, just moving the ruler wherever it needs to be in order to fit some of those markings. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw that line in. I'm going to draw this out. This kind of concaves out a little bit. Drawing that. Remember, we had this intersection here and intersection down here as well. I'm going to go ahead and just follow all the markings with my ruler, whatever ruler works best, and drawing all those lines. And then I'll be right back. I've drawn in all of the lines with either a curved ruler or a straight edge, and I just did not do the armhole or the side seams. That I'm going to do at the very end. After I drew in all the lines, I also drew a 1/2 inch seam allowance here, a 1/4 inch around the neckline, and I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to be right back. Okay, now I'm going to drop 1 inch from underneath the arm plate like that and put a marking. The same thing with the back. At that point, I'm going to go and make a 1/2 inch marking out. So we have like a little piece going out like that, a 1/2 inch out like that. That is going to be your new side seam. You have to have what's called ease. The ease is so that you can put your actual sleeve in, and you have some excess underneath so that you can move. We're going to go out a 1/2 inch here to nothing on this side as well. So first it's a 1/2 inch out to nothing, and then a 1/2 inch out, 1/2 inch out to nothing. Then we're going to take our French curve and we're going to go in the front. And at that drop line, we're going to put the French curve on the majority of the dots like that, and then draw the new armhole that is dropped like that. So that's your new armhole. The same thing is happening to the back, except it's a straighter line. You're going to follow these markings with the drop line like that, and then draw the line. It's got to be a little bit further down there like that. So that is going to be your new armhole. Then from there, you want to take the 1/2 inch seam allowance out there, and then just cut that out, and then the 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around the armhole like this, and then cut it. Okay, after that, we're going to pin it together. Okay, we did it. I have the princess bodice here on the mannequin. As you can see, it is pinned all the way around. I wanted to let you know about the pinch of ease. Why did I have the pinch of ease? Well, that's so that you can actually get into the garment properly. Let's say I would have there be a gathered skirt attached to this. That would take up excess allowance, and you need to have that extra allowance in order to breathe or to have a garment fully put together. So you need always an extra at the waistline and underneath the arm if you're doing a fit-in sleeve. So those are important things to know. But here is the princess bodice. I hope you loved this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel, which is Susan Elias Couture, and check out my website, which is eliascouture.com or susanelias.com. Ask me a question because you know I'm going to answer it. Thank you. Bye-bye.